Hey everybody, welcome to another video. This is Lauren here, and today I'm going to talk about all of my stats for the entire year of 2020. So we're going to be talking about how many books I read every month, the page links, genre, age group, average rating, the author's gender, the year that the book was published, and the ratio of owned books to borrowed books, as well as the ratio in digital format to physical format. So let's get started. As you can see, at the beginning of the year, I did quite well reading several books every month. The highest number of books read in a month was 11, which was in March and April. That's when quarantine started, and I had a chance to read a lot of books. Towards the end of the year, I started reading a lot less. I was overwhelmed with school. Things were happening personally that was very overwhelming. And so I just sadly didn't get a chance to read as much. But then when December came around, I started getting a little bit better and was able to read more books and enjoy myself again. So for page length, it seems like the average number of books that I read are about 300 to 399 pages. And I've read 28 books that were that long. And as the number of pages goes down or up, so does the number of books that I've read with that many pages for some reason. So 200 page books are about 15, and 400 page books are 17. And then I only read one book that was more than 700 pages. That was Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, and it was a great read. Definitely a long book, but it was definitely worth it. Now on to genre. This year, I read the most fantasy books. I read 18 fantasy books this year in 2020. And then my next highest categories are nonfiction, horror, and historical fiction, which makes sense. Horror and historical fiction and fantasy are some of my favorite genres. So my least favorites are more classics, poetry, short stories, and romance. And those are fairly low. So it makes sense. I tend to read a lot more adult novels than I do young adult novels, and it still obviously is true. In the middle of the year and towards the end of the year, about 79% or almost 80% of the books that I read are adult, and only 20% of the books that I read are young adult novels. I'm actually just starting to introduce myself to some more young adult novels and give them some chances. I've heard some great things. And my favorite book of the year was a young adult novel, and it was actually science fiction as well. It's called Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So just because it's not your favorite genre or your favorite age category doesn't mean it can't become your favorite book. The next thing is average rating. So how many stars do I give books, and do I like them? How much do I like the books that I'm reading? So I didn't finish 8 books this year, which is a lot of books, but I think that's something to celebrate. If you don't like a book, don't force yourself to read it. It's kind of goofy. Reading is to enjoy yourself. No one's forcing you to finish the book unless you have to, write a review on it, or if it's for school or something. But these are all books that I read for fun. So if I don't like it, I just tell myself, I try a little bit longer. And then if I just don't like it, then I just stop. So 11 of the books that I read had 2 stars, which is good. That means I finished it, but it just wasn't my favorite, or I almost did not finish it. 3 stars means it was good, that I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite, and I probably am not going to talk about it. I'm probably not going to ever pick it up or really think about it again. 4 stars means that it was really, really good book, but I probably won't be rereading it, and it wasn't my favorite book of all times, but it was really enjoyable. 5-star means that it's rereadable content. It's that good to where I want to put it on my shelf and possibly pick it up and read it again in the future. So I average about 3.5 stars over all the books that I've read in 2020, which I think is about normal. It seems like I have a lot of 5 and 4 stars. I've got 26 5 stars and 24 4 stars. Sounds like a lot, but I make sure that I pick the books that I'm gonna like. I do a lot of research. I go on Goodreads. I read the summaries. I read the reviews and the comments that people have left, and I also look it up on BookTube and see what other people have said about it. And if they like similar books that I like, then I think, okay, I'll try that book out. And so I think that's why hopefully this is so high. It just means I'm really good at picking out books that I know I'm going to like, hopefully. Knock on wood. And then for gender, I read a little bit more female writers than male writers this year. So 52% female and 45% male. For the year published, this was pretty interesting because most of the books that I read, the highest up here is for 2019. So I read 20 books that were published within the past year or two. And then the next highest was 2017 at 13 books. And then I also read a lot of books just in the 2000s in general. That's where I read the most of the books that I've read in 2020. And then I did read some books prior to the 2000s, but definitely not that many. I'm not sure if I'm going to set that as a goal for 2021 because I just don't see myself liking the more kind of classic books as much as I like more modern day books. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not that I'm not reading any in that time zone at all. It's just not my favorite kind of books, I guess. Owned versus borrowed ratio used to be pretty in the middle, about mid-year stats. I was doing pretty good, almost 50-50. But as the end of the year has come around, the more books that I've read, they've been more books that I've actually bought, and I own those books, whether it be physical or ebooks or audiobooks. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because think about all the books that I've read this year. If I've given like almost half of those books a 4 or 5 star, what's the chance that I'm going to read that book again? It's probably pretty high, right? So it's good that I own that book because then I have the chance to enjoy it and reread it again or go back and just look at some of my favorite parts if I want to talk about it with somebody or just enjoy those parts again. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing that it's 60-40 for owned versus borrowed. I think that's probably a good thing because I liked all the books that I read. So yay. And then for format, I read almost 50% for the most part. 47% was physical books. And let's see, 15 and 36. So about, what is that? I can't do math in my head. Let's see, 40, 50. So yeah, it's a little higher over here, right? It's like, I think 51, right? Or something like that. But my point is that physical books are actually a little bit lower than the ebooks and the digital books and the audiobooks. So I was really surprised about that because I thought physical book would be higher. But I did have an Audible subscription this year. I have since gotten rid of it because I just not an Audible learner, and I really tried to read books and I tried it out, and depending on who's reading it, it was okay. But I find myself just kind of, my brain really likes to float off into other directions. And if I'm not like focused and reading the words myself, I tend to kind of like forget that I'm reading something if I'm just listening to it, unless it's a really, really good book. So I did cancel my Audible subscription. So probably next year, this will be probably more physical heavy, I would say, than digital heavy. So anyway, these were all of my stats that I have for 2020. And I hope you guys enjoyed hearing and seeing some of my stats. I always love watching other people's stats as well. So comment down below in the comments. Show me a video that maybe you've made of your own stats. Tell me how many books that you've read this year. What is your favorite genre? How many books did you read of that genre? What's your average rating that you give to books in 2020? Hopefully it was better than the rest of the year tend to go. So I was really impressed that the books I read, I actually enjoyed because it's 2020. It seems like everything else sucks. So you'd think the books I read suck too, but it's the one thing that was actually positive this year. So yay! What year published do you like to read the most? Do you like to read the modern day books or more classics? Do you own more books than you borrow? And what's your favorite kind of format? Recently I've been really torn between liking digital and physical books. I love to hold a book in my hand, put it on my shelf, but I also like to have it in Kindle format where I can go anywhere and read it wherever I go. So I'm kind of torn right down the middle, 50-50. I like reading both at the same time and having some of my books that I'm currently reading be digital and some of them being physical. So let me know in the comments, what kind of a reader are you based on your stats? I definitely will be doing this again next year because it was a lot of fun. Well, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you later. Bye.